What's up, y'all? Jay here, and today I'm doing a couple reviews today, but I'm going to be starting with what was the biggest movie that I wanted to see this year. Uh, Definitely in my top two. The other movie is not even coming out this year, which is the Michael Jackson movie. But besides that, today I am going to be doing my review, my recap of my thoughts of Superman 2025. This has been a real divisive movie amongst, I would say the comic book movie community and whatnot. Me personally, I say it all the time, really big Superman fan. Got Superman tattoo, as you see right there. Always been a big Superman fan. Christopher Reeves, we had Brandon Routh, we had Dean Cain, we had Tom Welling, we had, of course, Henry Cavill, and now we have David Cornsworth. So I will be honest, when I first seen him, introduced as Superman, I was kind of like, I don't know. So used to, Zack Snyder's, Henry Cavill's version of it. And I'm a big fan of Man of Steel itself. I like Man of Steel. I'm not a Snyderverse shill at all. But I really did like Man of Steel. Just that variation of it was, not very comic book accurate at all, which I'll get into, but it was something I did enjoy back in 2013. And of course, classic Christopher Reeves as Superman. At least the first two, definitely. But anyways, into this. This is, written and directed and produced by James Gunn. And I was a little bit torn because it was a big shift from what we had previously. But I was open to giving it a try. At first, when I first seen David Cornsworth in the in the suit, the first image that they showed of the suit, I was not thrilled about it at all. But I was still willing to give it a shot. So we have him, David Cornsworth, obviously, as Superman, Clark Kent. So, this Superman starts out, we've had metahumans, as they call them, on Earth for, I believe they said 300 years or something like that. Superman has been on Earth for 30 years, and he's been actively as Superman for 3 years. I thought that was a good way to kind of introduce us to him, and then kind of show spots of what would originally be his origin, but kind of in like a dislocated way, instead of giving us just the full origin story. I like that. We hop right into, just a lot going on in the movie, just in general. But I liked it. I mean, we had kaijus in this. We had Metamorpho in this. We had Mr. Terrific. We had Hawkgirl. Lois Lane was a good Lois Lane. I liked her Lois Lane over Man of Steel's Lois Lane. I'm gonna get into that in a minute, but I liked her over that. Jimmy Olsen with Jimmy Olsen, traditional, kind of vibe with him, I guess you could say. Mr. Terrific. There was a lot of issues around them kind of saying he was kind of almost like a satire type character. I personally did not see that. I thought he was kind of supposed to be, a little bit more grounded, not just, like a monotone type of, rendition of the character. We had Guy Gardner, played by Nathan Fillion. I thought he was really good as that iteration of Guy Gardner and, Green Lanterns and whatnot. Hawkgirl, people made a big deal about her yelling. Was it annoying? I think around towards the end, it got a little bit where they went into, to the other country and whatnot. It did get a little bit annoying at that point, but other than that, it wasn't that big of a distraction, truthfully. At least to me, I did not see it as that big of an issue. We also have Crypto in this movie, and when I first seen Crypto in the trailers, I was like, I didn't know what to think of it. And I know for some people it was really annoying, but I thought it was a good touch. And the reason I thought it was a good touch is because at the end of the day, even though I have been watching Superman since, like I said, back in the, Christopher Reeves, era of it, all the way up into the Snyderverse and now into this new rendition that we're getting. At the core of it, I can enjoy it, but it's for children to build a new audience going forward. And a character like Crypto, because when I took my children to see it, they loved Crypto. He was a little bit much at times, but he was a dog, and like a dog was super hard. Like, what do you really expect? And it paid off towards the end when Superman really needed his help. He was able to be effective in a way that made sense for the movie. So I like that. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, I thought he was good. I liked his Lex Luthor. A little bit over the top at times, not on like a Jesse Eisenberg level, but still just slightly. And I'm not mad at that. I did like that. A lot of people didn't like the fact that Lois knows who Superman is and whatnot. And a lot of people didn't like the fact in the movie that Jor-El, Superman's parents, initially sent him to take over Earth. And I'm going to tell you why I think that was a good idea. I think it was a good idea because it depends on what their plans going forward with Superman are. So, my thing with that is you already have him and Lois's relationship established. Now you got this message from Jor-El and them saying that, or Jor-El saying that, he's to take over the planet, and make it, pretty much a new Krypton or whatever, that type of thing. They could be leading towards like an injustice type scenario, which would be good. That would be a different twist. So instead of us waiting and you have to go through the whole thing of him and Lois getting together and learning each other, they're already in love at this point. They're already established. You have this from his parents, and then now you got Superman saying, no, that I didn't know that. That's not what I was here for. But if you know the story that leads, into the whole injustice, type of thing, then you know that what happens in that scenario, and it makes sense because then he can end up fulfilling what he was actually sent there to do that he didn't know about. So I thought that was a nice little twist if they even go that route. We don't always need this full out origin story. Yes, they are good sometimes, but also it can be problematic. And so let me speak on some of the problematic things that were said about this movie. I'm gonna go from various areas. One, a lot of people have a problem with, the Kents, Superman's parents. They're saying they're too country. They're farmers from Kansas. Do you really think a farmer, okay, this is Superman. Do you think his parents, two farmers from Kansas that just randomly have this happen, is going to look like Kevin Costner and Diane Lane or something like that? No, they're going to look like that. I think that was a more realistic and grounded portrayal of it. Yeah, it may not be what it was in Man of Steel, but these are not. Did the parents from Man of Steel really look like they were farmers? Like I said, it's Kevin Costner. I believe that was Diane Lane, or I forget her name, but her as a mother. I think this would, if two people just randomly came across an alien, that crashed on their land or whatnot, that I could see them being that. So that, I think people are going a little bit overboard with that. I already spoke about the Mr. Terrific thing there, Crypto. Here's one big thing. People have this whole thing that I've been seeing about Superman and he's getting beat up or he's being emotional. This Superman put in more work than the other ones. You want to run back to, Henry Cavill, Man of Steel, like I said, I love that movie. Don't act like he wasn't getting beat down in that movie. Don't act like the Kryptonians didn't come down here and give him that work. Now, he eventually was able to, overcome it, just like this Superman was able to overcome a duplicate of himself, which, as Lex told him, is stronger than him. Look at all the number of things that he defeated in this movie. The kaiju, he defeated all of the swarm that Lex had. His showing of power in this movie was more than what, at least in Man of Steel, the original iteration of that Zack Snyder Superman, he showed to be more powerful than him. I hear people talk about him being emotional. Think about this. Those other, at least the Zack Snyder one, Brandon Routh one really should have been more emotional. But like this, the Brandon Routh one had a kid with Lois to the point where he was like being a little creepy weirdo outside of the window, like stalking and stuff, right? Zack Snyder's Superman didn't really have any emotional cue points that he had anything that showed real emotion about. And when he did, it was at the end where he went above and beyond and took out General Zod the way that he did, and then he had to let out that real visceral yell because he was actually going through something emotionally. This Superman is showing emotion. He's sitting up there with his woman at the time, his partner, Lois Lane, and he's somebody he's supposed to be able to kind of, and give that emotion with. The big thing with the Snyderverse is everybody was like, oh, that's not Superman. I'm used to the bright, vibrant Superman. This Superman now, was it corny when he said that he stands for this and all that at the end? Yes, it was a little corny, but that's what you asked for. I think everybody has this, or not everybody, but a lot of people in this community with this movie have this thing about whatever their rendition of it is in their head, that's what it needs to be. That Zack Snyder Superman, as much as I loved it, that Man of Steel movie and Batman v Superman and all that, that was not a accurate portrayal of Superman. The one thing I do find is that he looked like a big, bulky Superman type character. Henry Cavill visually looked like it. And then he kind of grew into the role later, but you can't claim you want comic accuracy, and then when you get comic accuracy, you cry about it because you want the inaccurate version of it. A lot of people want that Superman that was snapping necks and things of that nature. They want that Batman that was using guns and killing people. But then these same people, when it comes to a different property, will say, oh, it has to be comic accurate. Stop. It doesn't make any sense. Also, this is the first movie in this universe. James Gunn can grow this character. He can add those extra elements to make him a fully fleshed out Superman that we had the opportunity to get a fully encompassed Superman at the end of this. He's young enough. He has the look, and he's going to get bigger as he grows into the role. He's going to get more of that Superman physique. He'll probably get a new suit because everybody hates the suit. Suit wasn't that bad, but there will more than likely be a variation of it. I just think that people need to give it time to progress. You're not going to get everything you want in the first shot. I'm pretty sure when people seen, if you remember when people seen Man of Steel, they lost their minds at the end of that movie because of what Superman did. But these same people are championing it now. I'm starting to find that people just don't like change for some reason. Even if they don't like the original, which was a change, and then they rebel against that. When something new comes, they just find a reason to rebel against that. I'm glad that this movie ended up winning the summer box office against Fantastic Four and against Jurassic Park. And I think this is a really good universe James Gunn is building. And I hope it goes on, to do great things. I'm already ready for the second. I'm really curious to see what he does with Supergirl, as we've seen her at the end. And I think James Gunn knows the property enough to do it correctly. And it doesn't seem like he's trying to take too many liberties as other directors have. Like I said, I used to like the Snyderverse, but I'm not a Snyderverse shill. And there are some definite Snyderverse shills out there. I'll actually be getting at a couple of them soon. But give the Gunn universe a chance. This is the first movie. And for the first movie in a universe that he's building out, and you can see him do certain things to build all these things out. We get the Green Lantern show that's coming up, but we have the Green Lanterns in the universe already. So he can cross those things over. He can kind of build it in that manner. Give him the chance to make adjustments. We are also just judgmental. This movie, you had so many people against this movie before it came out that it probably did hurt the box office, and it still ended up, being profitable. So imagine if he takes all of that criticism, filters it, obviously, and builds this to what it could really, really be, which is what I think he's trying to do. So I'm all for the James Gunn versus DCU at this point in time. And I really like this movie. And I'm looking forward to more. The rating I give it a... Things I didn't like about the movie. There were some very hokey parts. I did not like the monkeys. I did not like that. That was just stupid. I didn't get mad at him saying, oh, I want to talk about the power scaling real quick, and I'll get back to that. They say that Man of Steel was so much stronger than this Superman. Seen this Superman do a ton of stuff that shows like he was pretty strong. I mean, he held up a building. He did a lot. You know what I mean? And so yeah, but off of that, him saving the squirrel took me out of the movie for a second. You know, and I get it. It's showing that Superman will save, but come on, the squirrel. You know, you already saved the little girl. You're doing all this, so that was a little bit much to me. Like I said, that I didn't like Metamorpho. I can understand how people thought Guy Gardner was a little I liked him personally. He was the comic relief and things, so that worked for me personally. I think it was a good. He was needed. Something wasn't needed was Hawkgirl, but maybe they had her in there to play up to something later. I think that could have been a different character. I will honestly say I think that could have been a better and different character. There's a lot of complaints about characters like Hawkgirl, like Perry White, you know, things of that nature that didn't really get used in the movie. And people were just like, oh, that could have been something else. No, because he's building the universe. So when you see these characters in this movie, even if they are barely used, in the next movie, when they actually have something to kind of expound upon with them, it makes sense because they were already in the universe. He's not going to waste a Wendell Pierce type actor to play Perry White and just not use him. He just didn't have anything in this movie, but he may be very, you know, very needed in the next movie. And I think James Gunn is that type of director. So my grade for this movie, I'd give it a B minus. Like there was some things that was all over the place and everything because I think he was cramming so much in there. But I still thought it was good. People were complaining about just so much stuff. But I like Superman. This was the best movie I've seen this summer. I'm actually going to see Weapons tonight. That'll be up, so that might actually, you know, usurp it. But right now, Superman was a good movie. I enjoyed my time with it. I thought it was a very good first outing. I'm looking forward to see what they have coming forward from this. And yeah, let me know what you thought. You know, hop in the comments. Would love to interact with you. I'm Jay, and yeah.